Masato is a useless moron with an overly affectionate mom who doesn't understand privacy. To avoid her constant nagging, he escapes into a video game world, only for her to follow and outshine him as the strongest hero, making his life even worse. It starts with Masato filling out a form asking if he's close to his mother Mamako, while she cooks dinner in the background. Masato chooses the average option, but the next questions are also related to his mother, such as how much he talks to her. Once again, Masato picks the average option. The next question asks what his mother said that made him happy, and Masato realizes the only thing she's ever delivered is a headache. Just as Mamako serves dinner, she notices that Masato is fully engrossed in the form and is treating her like a useless NPC. When she starts peeping into the form, Masato gets upset and pushes her away, telling her to stop being an annoying moron. The last question asks if Masato will get closer to his mother if they go on an adventure together, and the guy writes he is not sure about it. The next day, an agent named Shirase visits their house on behalf of an organization that's doing a survey. Mamako wants to be the one to break the news, but Shirase tells her to leave the room and let her do her job. After Mamako leaves, Shirase tells Masato that he will be living a new life from now on. She mentions how many players of online games wish to enter the game world and asks him if he feels the same way. Masato says he would love to do that if it were possible, so Shirase quickly enters some lines of code into his computer, prompting it to emit a bright light. Just then, Masato's body starts getting sucked into the computer screen, and Shirase tells him he's being sent to the game world. Once he's in the tunnel, he looks back to see his mother saddened at his departure. Realizing he's treated his mother worse than flat earthers in 2024, he promises to come back a better man and love her right. Just then, he is teleported to this new world of floating islands and fairies, and cannot wait to begin his adventure. As he looks around, he sees upside-down castles and dragons, and is thrilled to explore the world. But all of his joy goes into the gutter, when his mother Mamako spawns right after him, complaining about how he left without her. Soon after, the mother-son duo is taken to the teleportation palace, where the king asks them for their names. Mamako introduces her and Masato to the king, who then puts their name on the player registration page. Masato is a predator who uses a fake name to collect kittens on Discord, so he starts freaking out about the fact that he's now registered with his real name. The king then gives them their basic stats, and Masato gets a normal hero class. The king explains that this is a common ordinary class, and normal heroes do not have any major role in saving the world. The king then explains that they are in a closed beta of an online game and players are summoned here to test it. He further explains how players were chosen through an anonymous survey, but some wrote their names on the sheet and were also chosen for the test. The game is still in beta, so it does not have a name, so they're just calling it MMORPG. The game's genre is fantasy and offers a wide variety of classes to choose from. Some are fighters, some are crafters, while others just decorate their houses. Masato, however, was given a new class so the devs could gather more data. While Masato gets a basic idea of how the game works, Mamako is clueless and doesn't even know what account means. The king isn't running an elementary school for stupid adults, so he just gives her a book so she can figure things out on her own. When Masato overwhelms him with even more questions, such as why his mother is here with him, the king decides to give them some bonus items to shut him up. He takes them into a room that has 3 swords implanted into a boulder, and reveals these are the rewards for completing the game's most difficult quest. He then asks Masato to pick one of the swords, and the man goes for the blue one. This one is a holy sword of the great heavens called Firmament, which once removed all darkness from the world with a single swing. Next up is Mamako's turn to pull a sword, and much to their surprise, she pulls out both swords at once. Her logic, or lack thereof, is that the last remaining sword would felt lonely, and that she could use both of them to cut vegetables. Following that, Masato and Mamako are taken to an arena for the tutorial battle of the game, where they are pitted against several low-level monsters. Mamako attacks them first with a red sword, rumored to have created all life, but she's way better at using it to end it. As more monsters show up, Mamako uses her blue sword, which once saved the world from a huge flood. After she's done showing off, she asks Masato to complete his tutorial, but he only manages to knock out a small bird from the sky. The man is utterly disappointed in his miserable attempt, but Mamako keeps cheering him up. When she notices the despair on his face, she runs up to him to make sure he's okay, but Masato gets frustrated, finding it unfair that his mother, who's never played games before is suddenly better at it than him. She urges him to keep fighting to hone his skill, but Masato is already done with it and wants to go back. He reveals he is happy to be in this game world, but having his mother tag along is something that he never wanted. He asks if she pre-planned all of this with the organization, but Mamako is hesitant to tell him what's going on here. Masato gets upset and threatens to disown her if she doesn't tell him. But this hits the spot and Mamako bursts into tears, explaining all she ever wants is to get close to her son. Seeing her like this, Masato immediately regrets his words and tries to comfort her. The man gets on his knees, begging for forgiveness and promising to never use such harsh words ever again. After that, they resolve the issue, and Masato becomes much more open to the idea of adventuring with his mother. Later, the two arrive at the kingdom of Mammalia, and Masato realizes the game doesn't have enough budget to render all the characters properly since it is still in beta. Just then, Mamako pulls out the guidebook from her forbidden territory and realizes they need to go to the Adventurers Guild first. Once there, Masato gets super excited to see so many adventurers, while Mamako is ecstatic to see her son all pumped up. She then asks Masato to give her his sword and uses it to scare off everyone in the area. Her logic is that they need to make their presence known for people to take them seriously, but Masato is worried they will be penalized for attempted PK. Just then, an injured Shirase comes out of the Adventurers Guild, revealing herself as the guildmaster. Heading inside, Masato asks if she is okay, but she reveals she is merely an object and the wound is just an in-game effect, which means no PK penalty will be applied. With that, Shirase presents them with potential members for their guild, and Masato decides to pick them since he has a lot of experience with such games. However, Mamako reveals they need to count on many other factors because they will be living with these members. Thus, she decides to conduct interviews to see which one suits them the best. The first woman is a knight, who vows to defeat her enemies by inflicting twice the pain she received, but Mamako deems her too cruel and rules her out. The next girl is of a thief class and has a mastery in stealing, but she gets rejected because stealing is wrong. The next one's an elf priest, but Mamako rejects her on sight because those dumb elf ears look like satellite dishes picking up bad ideas. After rejecting all three of Masato's choices, they are visited by a nervous girl named Porta who is also a test player. She is of a merchant class, which means her basic skill gives her a discount on items when shopping or staying at an inn. She also has a merchant-only bag that she got as a bonus item, and this bad boy can hold 300 items in it. She also has a special skill that lets her appraise and create items, but her downside is that she is a non-combat class, meaning she cannot support them in battle. However, her benefits outweigh her negatives, so both of them agree to form a party with her. Mamako, however, wants to make her a daughter-in-law, much to Masato's frustration. Next up is a sage named Wise, who is capable of casting healing and attacking magic. Her CV says she will cast a chain casting instant death upon them if they do not choose her. Even though her stats look good, Masato doesn't want to deal with a redneck virgin who runs faster than her brothers. Looking at her picture, Masato comments that she looks like the type who would blow up her own squad mates in battle and laugh at their dead bodies. The man curls up her CV and throws it away, but it appears right back on his table again. When he fails to tear it up, he slams it into the floor and steps on it. Just then, a bright light emits from the paper, and Wise comes out of it, revealing she was inside it all along. Since Masato has embarrassed her, she teleports him in the middle of nowhere and steps on him. After the man apologizes, Wise steps off and starts talking about how good the wind feels. Masato, on the other hand, thinks she was desperate to join their party, which is why she went to such extreme lengths. Noticing that she's all flustered, he asks Wise to sit beside him so he can conduct an interview. In the meantime, Shirase apologizes to Mamako because she is unable to locate Masato, leaving her in tears. Porta assures her that Masato is strong enough to manage on his own, but her motherly instincts tell her something bad might happen to her son. Her biggest concern is Masato rizzing up a girl and bailing on her, because heaven forbid he gets a life that doesn't revolve around her. Meanwhile, Wise and Masato talk about the nature of the game, with the latter complaining about his annoying mother tagging along. Wise explains that the entire purpose of this game is to bring children closer to their mothers, but the idea sounds so ridiculous Masato thinks she's joking. However, Wise gets so upset she threatens to pull Itachi's Genjutsu by executing and reviving him over and over again until she's out of mana. Not want to suffer the same fate as Kakashi, Masato agrees to listen to her story. Wise then explains that every player is brought in with their mother so they can adventure together and get closer to each other. She has no idea how this game was made, but it is impossible to leave until the win condition is met, which is to actually get closer to your mother. Wise reveals she was also traveling with her mother at first, but the two had a fight and split up. Now, she is trapped here with no way to go back. She was hoping Mamako would adopt her so she could get close to her and leave the game, but that isn't a viable option. Back at the guild, Shirase explains that the most important part of this game is the relationship between a mother and a child. By channeling that bond, Mamako can ask Mother Nature to guide her to Masato's location. Once her power activates, Mamako is able to spot Masato and heads straight to his location. By using that power, she picks up a skill to find her son and interrupt him on command, as if she needed a special ability to ruin his day. Later, Wise is put behind bars for stepping on Masato, since it is considered an attempted PK. The same law does not apply to Masato, because he merely stepped on a piece of paper. As she growls at them to let her out, Mamako politely tells her she already knows what she wants, and even though she cannot become her daughter, she is welcome to join their party. However, if they run into Wise's mother on the way, Mamako will meddle and force them to make up. However, Wise would rather put pineapple on her pizza than make up with that vile woman. Despite her typical tsundere behavior, Masato gently asks her to join their party because they can use someone like her in their team. She immediately uses this to her advantage and agrees to join their party, claiming they wouldn't last without her anyway. Soon after, they arrive at the giant hole that leads them to a dungeon but accidentally fall inside without much preparation. They'd all get separated in the dark, and everyone starts panicking when they cannot see each other. That's when Mamako tries to calm them down, which causes her body to glow brightly. Porter runs up to her, revealing she's unlocked a skill called Mother's Light. After regrouping, the four of them arrive at a large room that appears to be a boss arena. Just then, small slimes show up, and Wise decides to deal with them on her own. Even before she can cast her spells, her magic gets sealed off, rendering her even more useless than before. Mamako quickly takes action and uses her red sword to take out the slime, thus freeing Wise from the seal. While Porter rushes to collect the gems, Mamako gets a pop-up telling her that she has leveled up. While they are busy looking at her stats, hundreds of small slimes fall from the roof and merge to form one giant slime. Wise's magic is sealed once again, and Masato barely saves Mamako from getting swallowed. However, her clothes are covered in slime goo, causing them to erode off her body. Seeing his mother in the flesh, Masato tries to get off her, but keeps falling face first into her chug jugs due to the slime. As soon as he gets off, the slime attacks Mamako again, causing her pants to erode as well. Despite being in the bear, Mamako gets up and attacks the slime with her red sword, causing it to die instantly. As she jumps up and down in joy, her body starts glowing again, and Porta comes running in to put some clothes on her. However, she dresses her up in nothing but an apron, and Masato realizes he might star in a family therapy video if this keeps up. When the slime's body erodes, a coffin appears in its place, which opens up to reveal Shirase's body. Wise uses her magic to revive her, and they quickly realize that the game has used Shirase's model to create different NPC characters in the game. This particular one is tasked of giving them a quest that involves going to the village of Mamen, which is located in the west of the kingdom. Later, the squad buys some groceries and Mamako serves them a delicious breakfast. Wise finds it so tasty that she starts crying, but Masato reminds them that they are here on a special quest and must get some equipment after eating. Later, they hit up an armorer's shop, where Mamako tries on something a little too spicy for momwear, making her son question every life choice that led to this moment. He asks her to try something else, and after some trial and error, Mamako finally chooses an armor that Masato does not have a problem with. She also buys a lot of clothes on sale for everyone, but Masato scolds her for getting ahead of herself. Wise asks him to watch his mouth, and only then he realizes he's gone too far again. Mamako gets all flustered and starts apologizing, but Masato blames himself for throwing tantrums like a kid. Mamako notices his distress and asks him to put his head in her lap so she can clean his ears. Despite initial reluctance, he is forced into it by Wise, but soon realizes it isn't as bad as he thought. He then apologizes for his actions, stating he says some rude things he does not mean by heart. The two make up, and Mamako starts glowing again, making Wise realize she's the only one with a dysfunctional family. Later, they arrive at the village, and the mayor tells them about a demon called the Empress of the Night. She used her power to enslave everyone and asked the villagers to bring out the best-looking guy from their village as a sacrifice. The sacrifice is to be made tonight, and the mayor offers them free food and residence as long as Masato offers himself to the demon. Having no other choice, Masato accepts his offer and enjoys a warm bath at night, before getting his juice sucked out of him. Just then, Mamako shows up and shoves his face into her jiggly jelly beans so Porta can jump into the bath without getting seen. Despite initial reluctance, Wise joins them too and Mamako comforts her by massaging her shoulders. They talk about their upcoming battle with the Empress, and Mamako reveals she was unable to find anything relevant in the guidebook. Even though it will be very dangerous going in blind, they have already accepted the request and must defeat the demon. Wise pitches in with her knowledge about the Empress, revealing she uses all kinds of magic, buffs, and healing. She also has a cast-cancel skill, meaning no one can interrupt her when she's casting. She further explains that the Empress has invincibility barriers, which need 3 hits in a row to break. When Masato asks how she knows so much about the Empress, Wise almost slips up, but covers it by saying she heard it from the villagers. When Masato refuses to believe her lies, she stands up in the pool to scold her, forgetting that her melons are out on display. Masato prepares to get a solid beating for seeing her in the flesh, but Wise gets embarrassed and runs off crying into the changing room. The next day, Shirase meets the Empress and her OnlyFans subscribers, and tells her how her actions are far from what the devs intended, which is why she will be removed from the game. However, the Empress for some reason is immune to her attacks and builds up one of her own to neutralize her. Shirase reminds the Empress that her daughter is close and she should make up with her, but the Empress reveals she has no such intentions before yeeting her into oblivion. Back in the village, Wise talks to Masato from outside the changing room, letting him know that she's going out for a walk. He reminds her they will be fighting the demon later, so she asks him to tag along with her. However, Masato already knows what's going on and asks her to spill the tea. Later, they all sit together and they encourage her to tell them what she has been hiding. Wise finally reveals that the Empress of the Night the mayor was talking about is actually her mother. Back in the real world, she would spend all her money at host clubs, and even named her Genya after one of her favorite hosts. Because of her bad habits, her marriage fell apart, and Wise decided to live with her father since he was the only sane person in this dysfunctional family. However, one day out of nowhere, she wants Wise back in her life and forces her to join this game so they can get closer. But when she joined the game, she started fooling around with other men to blow off steam, which caused a massive fight between the two. She declares that she and her mother are done, but Mamako assures her that the Empress still loves her somewhere in her heart. All they'd have to do is bring that love out of the Empress, and all of this will be over soon. Later, while the Empress is waiting for her sacrifice, she can't help but think about her daughter Wise, who is nearby. One day, while Wise was in her room reading a magazine, her mother barged in and dragged her into the game without any explanation. Once she learned what was going on, she threw a full-on tantrum. Soon after, they started teaming up to defeat monsters, but then things went south and Wise ran away from her. Just then, Wise wakes up in Mamako's lap and realizes she was dreaming. After they check up on her, Masato jokes about her drooling in sleep, but she summons a Grim Reaper to make him shit his pants. That night, they enter the forest and find a coffin hanging off a tree. And when Wise uses magic to open it up, they see the same Shirase that was eliminated by the Empress. She is happy to see them, but since the tree branch is still in her body, she dies again. After freeing and reviving her again, Wise fills her in on the whole situation, so Shirase decides to give them some additional info about her mother. She reveals that the Empress's real name is Kazuno, a test player who's gone batshit crazy and has started pimping hot guys. Just like Wise, Kazuno is also a mage and has a book of spells that let her use any magic in the game. She also saved up a lot of skill points, which she has used to learn the cast-cancel skill, and has somehow achieved perfect defense, which isn't an intended feature in the game. Not only that, she's also forcing the NPC characters to do what they weren't supposed to do. Shirase believes Kazuno is using some kind of a cheat code and will be penalized with 100 million yen if caught. The only way to avoid that is to manipulate the events in such a way that Kazuno and Wise end up close again. After they agree on a plan, Shirase uses her special powers to summon Kazuno directly to them. As soon as she arrives, Kazuno fills the entire forest with lava lakes, but Wise quickly uses ice rain to counter its effects. Kazuno then starts pulling the forest inwards to crush them, but Mamako uses her multi-target attacks to stop the trees. To counter her, Kazuno quickly traps Mamako and Porta into an indestructible tree and then summons a white room around them, which she claims was sent to her anonymously. Inside this room, Kazuno has the power to make any wish come true, so she summons 3 powerful fairy monsters to deal with Masato and Wise. When she reminds everyone how Wise walked out on her, Wise apologizes, saying she did not mean to abandon her, but Kazuno she was on birth control that day and knocks her out. She then turns her attention to Masato, dubbing him a spoiled brat just like Wise. Masato admits to being a loudmouth idiot, recalling all the rude things he said to his mother. However, he knows he doesn't have any ill will towards her and makes Kazuno see that Wise feels the same way about her. Despite being slightly affected by his words, Kazuno brushes it off and starts attacking Masato, blaming kids for taking away the freedom of parents. Just then, a bright light emerges from the tree which destroys the entire white cube. Out comes Mamako, who starts yapping about the day Masato was born. She recalled Masato's first laughter, and the first date he called her mommy, and the first time he shat his pants, which were the happiest moments of her life. She does not understand why Kazuno doesn't feel the same way, since they're both mothers, and vows to make her remember all those joyous occasions she had with Wise. Just then, Masato joins her, apologizing for being so selfish, and thanking her for never giving up on him, which fills her eyes with tears. With that, Mamako starts attacking continuously and even breaks through Kazuno's barrier. Soon after, Porta tosses an orb at Masato, which allows him to seal Kazuno's magic for some time. With her barrier down, Kazuno gets desperate and throws everything she has at them, including a tantrum, but Wise gets back up and knocks her off her throne. Not wanting to give up, Kazuno grows wings and starts flying, but Masato uses his anti-air sword to bring her down again. After that, Mamako lands the final hit to knock her out, and Wise catches her mid-air. She says she could never hate her despite her being a bitch, because they are mother and daughter. With tears in her eyes, Wise apologizes to her and says she wants to make up with her. Soon after, they go back to fighting about all the things they did to each other, but at least they are together again. Since Kazuno is no longer a threat to their game, Cherise allows them to keep playing until they finish the end goal. The next day, Wise joins their party again, and when asked why she's not leaving, she starts boasting about how their party will hit the dust without her. In reality, she's formed a close bond with them and wants to spend more time here. Just then, Cherise shows up and gives them another quest, which is just another problem with the game the devs can't solve. With this new quest, the squad continues its journey, and Masato slowly starts to like adventuring with his mother. Sometime later, the squad comes across a horde of various monsters, and as Masato and Wise prepare to battle them, Mamako takes the stage and defeats them all on her own, leaving them slightly irritated. While Porta collects the gemstones, Wise and Masato fall into a self-worth crisis when a giant blimp flies over their heads. As they wonder how to get stronger, the blimp drops a large stack of flyers on top of them. Upon checking one of the papers, Masato learns that an academy is looking to hire adventurers. Seeing the excitement on his face, Mamako urges him to pursue his dreams, and the Masato heads straight to the academy. Soon after, they arrive at Maternia, the city of learning which hosts the Lover's Lane Academy. According to the flyer, every adventurer who enrolls in the academy is granted a ton of skill points, which is exactly what Masato needs to increase his stats and learn new skills. Wise, on the other hand, is more interested in winning an item that blocks all kinds of magic sealing, which has been her kryptonite until now. Porta sets her eyes on a stuffed animal, which not only looks cute but also increases her chance of successfully crafting an item. Seeing an item that increases attack power, Masato gets suspicious because all the rewards for completing this quest are the items they need. Porta questions if it is wise to leave Mamako behind, but Masato assures her it's normal for children to attend school on their own. Just then, he bumps into a girl and is immediately charmed by her beauty. As he helps her up, she introduces herself as Medi, but they are quickly interrupted by her mother Metamama. From the get-go, it is quite obvious that Metamama is a talker who doesn't even let others answer her questions before asking the next one. After yapping for eternity, she starts walking in the other direction, and Medi follows her mother, hoping to see Masato again. Masato is excited to meet Medi in class, but he is shocked to learn that the game devs merely placed unfinished models of NPC characters in the class. Their instructor Gruff welcomes them to the class, but he notices that only 3 out of the 4 students are present. Assuming the fourth student is his mother, Masato reaches for the door but runs into Medi calling her mother by accident. Wise takes the chance to make fun of him for calling Medi her mommy, and she also plays in on the joke, causing him loads of embarrassment. Despite the and giggles, Medi is happy to be in the same class as Masato, calling it a twist of fate. Masato finally gets recognition from a woman who is not his mother, but his dream of scoring some action is interrupted when Metamama joins the class. She immediately points out that Masato is standing too close to her daughter and asks her to create some distance from the guy. Later, the class starts and Metamama sits between her daughter and Masato to play the ultimate blocker. Gruff asks the first question, and Maddie quickly answers it, scoring 10 points for herself. On the next question, Masato is about to answer, but Metamama stops him and asks Medi to answer it. Medi answers correctly, scoring yet another 10 points while her mother pretends that her stopping Masato was totally unintentional. Gruff asks the third question, and this time, Wise gets up to answer it. However, she starts acting strangely and Masato realizes it's because Metamama has put her under a spell. Soon after, the whole class falls asleep, but Masato stays up because his armor has some resistance to status effects. Hell-bent on making him fall asleep, Metamama goes overboard and increases her spell's strength, stating that a good mother should let go of her morals and do everything in her power to make sure their children come out on top. Eventually, even Masato falls asleep, and when all of them wake up, both Medi and her mother are gone. Porta reveals Metamama has a staff that lets her cast spells without enchants, but Masato finds it strange how it affects even Porta, who is registered as a non-combatant. Just then, a message is played for Masato, asking him to head to the rear courtyard where a heroine is waiting for him. Hoping to get some sloppy toppy, Masato rushes to the courtyard only to find his own mother waiting for him.
No! God, please, no!
He notices that Mamako is dressed in a schoolgirl outfit, and even though it looks good on her, Masato has a problem because he doesn't want his junior to give a standing ovation to his own mother. When he asks for an explanation, Shirase shows up out of nowhere, this time acting as the school's principal. She reveals that the school was constructed to ward off overbearing parents who complained about the lack of education in the game world. Shirase made sure to write each flyer by hand to lure the students with the items they wanted. But now, since Mamako is here, this means they are on a mission. Shirase wants them to handle problems between parents and children that are too difficult for the devs to handle. Later, as the class begins, Mamako joins in as a student, but Masato starts yelling that she shouldn't be here. Mamako then admits she is Masato's mother who just wants to observe, so Gruff makes her sit in the observation section. Turns out it was all a part of their plan to single out Mamamedi, who is also separated from the main class. When Gruff asks the next question, Mamamedi casts a spell to put everyone to sleep, but her spell cancels out due to one of Mamako's skills that negates all the bad status effects. Now it's time to answer the question, but much to everyone's surprise, Mamako raises her hand to answer it. Despite her not being part of the class, Gruff lets her answer and grants her 30 points for the correct answer. Impressed by her answer, Gruff asks her another question and grants another 30 points for the correct answer. By the end of the session, Mamako leads with 360 points, while Medi comes in second place with 170 points. The next day, Masato gets ready early and runs off to school without Mamako because he's too embarrassed to be seen with a busty MILF. On the way, he comes across Medi, who is also running to school early to review yesterday's lesson. Masato uses this as an opportunity to invite her to a group studying, hoping to get some early morning bone zone. However, his hopes are shattered when he notices that his mother, Wise, and Porta are right behind him. Just then, Metamama shows up in a schoolgirl costume, revealing she's bought every kind of outfit to fit the situation. While she is prepared to steal the spotlight today, Mamako has no such intentions and only wants all of them to do their best. Masato, on the other hand, is lamenting over the lack of pipe laying in his life. Later, Gruff introduces them to the concept of item creation and asks them to cook the best meal they know. Wise is frustrated because combat class cannot get skill points in such classes, but Masato reminds her that they have Porta, who is a master in item creation. Using her skills, Porta creates some hard-boiled eggs and impresses Masato, but when Wise tries copying her, she ends up creating something that smells worse than horse. Masato tries his luck as well, only to end up exploding the beaker. Just then, they realize Medi has cooked a meal so elaborate it makes Gordon Ramsay look like an amateur. While Masato drools over her housewife skills, Wise is quick to notice that Metamama is using an illusion spell to make Medi's bad meals look tasty. To confirm her suspicion, Masato tries tasting her dishes, but ends up vomiting because they taste like. Just then, Mamako joins the class and creates a soup for Masato, which ends up boosting his item creation. Gruff explains it's because she blew on the soup, and her mother's breath is the reason for the stat boosts. Exploiting her powers, both Wise and Portic get their item creation boosted, and together, they end up creating some really fancy dishes. Each of them gains 20 points for their dishes, and the whole class including Medi applauds them. However, Metamama scolds her for praising her competitors, and Masato notices that Medi is holding back some deep hatred in her heart. During lunchtime, the squad is given to eat everything they made, but since it is too much, Mamako brings some containers to store it for later. By putting the containers in Porta's bag, they can keep it from going bad. Before they get to eating, Shirase shows up and grabs Mamako's juicy rice cakes. She reveals she was only taking her measurements, and then sternly tells them to eat as much as they can, because they might not survive the afternoon class. During the afternoon, they are taken to the swimming pool, and Masato is already regretting because he'll be seeing his mother in a swimsuit. However, as soon as Medi arrives to check up on him, the man forgets all his worries and gets ready to swim. While Metamama's outfit screams part-time club worker, Mamako shows up dressed surprisingly appropriately for the occasion. When all the NPC classmates surround Mamako like she's some celebrity, Masato can't live with it and decides to drown himself in the pool. Later, while Mamako is comforting her son, Metamama is furious about losing to her again, and Medi makes a strange comment about her mother that catches Masato's attention. He looks at her to make sure she's okay only to see her gently smiling as usual. As the swim class starts, Gruff instructs the combatants to defeat the monsters in the pool, and the crafters to create items using monster drops. Masato's sword is the most effective against flying enemies, so he is basically screwed with all the swimming monsters. On the other hand, Medi gets into and defeats a monster with a single attack, while her mother boasts about how she can fight well despite being a healer. Impressed by her skills, Masato jumps into the pool and manages to defeat a giant octopus in a single attack. Porta quickly grabs the octopus leg from him and turns it into a takoyaki set, which cures all kinds of bad status effects. To catch more monsters, Masato jumps again into the pool where he and Medi compete to catch the biggest one. When they spot a big fish, Metamama pushes Medi to go after it, while Mamako advises Masato to don't push himself too hard, because he's already done so much work. When she says he's always a winner in her eyes, this motivates him further to keep pushing even harder. On the other hand, Metamama constantly berates her daughter for falling behind and disappointing her, which causes Medi to give up. Masato stops to check up on her, but they are both surprised by a gigantic sea anemone that swallows the fish they were chasing whole. It immediately goes after Mamako and traumatizes Masato like he didn't already have enough reasons to want out of this family nightmare. Porta hands her the blue sword, which she uses to cut off the tentacles. Once the monster jumps in the air, Masato quickly uses his sword to finish it off and earns the first position. While Mamako and the squad praise Masato for the win, Medi gets slapped and insulted by her mother for losing. After Metamama leaves, Masato tries to comfort her, but Medi runs off. Masato and Mamako catch up to her, only to find her kicking the wall and ranting about how much she hates her mother. That night, Mamako arranges another strategy meeting inside a pool to discuss the situation with Medi and her mother. Masato knows they shouldn't meddle with someone's family problems, but he cannot help but feel sorry for Medi, because he once had problems with his mother too. This is why he wants to resolve their issue and wants help from them in doing so. Despite being a bit jealous about how much he cares about Medi, Wise agrees to help him resolve Medi's mommy issues. The next day, the whole class is excited about the school festival, but Masato is worried because they received no prior notice of it. Gruff explains that the festival is designed to toughen them up for real situations, which is why they received no prior notice. Since it is a festival, parents are allowed to participate as well. Mamako quickly rushes in and suggests they do a little cafe for the festival, confident she can cook something good. Metamama shows up and declares she will be going for a cafe as well, challenging them to see who sells more. The next day, the whole school is decorated for the festival, and while Masato is carrying vegetables, he notices an NPC proposing to his mother. Mamako turns down the NPC because he not only looks like the One Punch Man, but also because she's a mother whose priority is Masato. Medi shows up and tells Masato that her mother is really popular, revealing how her shoe cubby was filled with love letters. She then apologizes on her mother's behalf, explaining how she sometimes does bold things to make her win. Masato asks her how she's holding up, and she says she wants to put her faith in her mother without causing any problems to others. Later, the festival officially begins, and there is a huge line outside Mamako's cafe. While Mamako is calmly cooking, Masato, Porta, and Wise are busy dealing with the customers. On the other hand, Metamama's cafe is completely empty, so she asks Medi to change to a swimsuit to attract customers. She is so hellbent on winning this competition that she's willing to let others objectify her own daughter. As soon as she Medi off, Masato walks in claiming he came to check up on Medi. However, Metamama gets upset and eliminates him with multiple death attacks. This causes Masato's body to be upgraded to a floating form, allowing him to become an invisible ghost. Medi asks her mother to revive Masato, but she tells her to woo Masato with her body and make him ruin his own cafe. Terrified of her sick mindset, Masato decides to leave their cafe. Later, the customers at Mamako Cafe decide to serve themselves, so Masato, Wise, and Porta are free to do whatever they want. Just then, Medi shows up looking all cute and asks Masato to take a walk with him. She drags him to the main hall and starts acting like they're newlyweds. However, Masato knows why she's acting this way and decides to give her a TED Talk. When he reveals he heard their plan, Medi gets embarrassed and starts emitting a strange aura. Just then, Metamama shows up and Masato urges her to stop using Medi for her own gain. When she refuses to give up, Masato reminds her they have already lost, but she pulls out a poster for a beauty contest and challenges him to another battle. Later, the beauty contest is held, and the winner will be decided by the cheer meter that measures noise. First up is Medi, who accidentally bumps her head into the mic and goes all red. This causes the crowd to go wild at her cuteness, giving her a cheer score of 90. After a few more contestants, Wise takes the stage and tries to copy Medi's moves, but the only cheers she gets are from the crickets, and even they sound unimpressed. Just before the results are announced, Mamako comes up to the stage and asks Wise to heat the stove with her fire magic, unaware that there is a beauty contest going on. Seeing the mech in the audience, she decides to advertise her cafe, and the crowd goes so wild the cheer meter gives the score of 999. With that, Mamako is declared the winner of the competition, so Masato runs away with Medi before her mother can scold her. Wise then gives her a pep talk, asking her to have some integrity and stop doing whatever her mother tells her to. She asks Medi what her heart desires, and she says she only wants to run the cafe alongside her friends while having a good time. However, the sad part is that she does not have any friends, so she's stuck with her mother. However, Masato and the rest quickly interrupt her, reminding her that they are her friends and she can do all of the things she wants with them. Seeing them be so nice to her, Medi finally breaks down and they wholeheartedly welcome her into the squad. Just then, Metamama shows up and grabs her by the throat, asking her to explain why she ran away with Masato. When she explains she's made new friends, Metamama goes batshit crazy and is about to whoop ass. Luckily, Mamako shows up in time and stops her from hitting Medi. She tries to explain that pushing kids to be number one can be stressful, but Metamama reveals she is only doing it so people call her the best mother. Realizing she was doing it for herself, Medi finally loses her mind and unleashes all the dark power that was building within her. Filled with hatred, Medi turns into a dragon and is ready to take revenge on her mother. Instead of regretting how she treated her daughter, Metamama demonstrates her art of dodging responsibility and blames Masato for this outcome. However, Mamako interferes, asking Masato to deal with Medi while she deals with her mother. As Masato, Wise, and Porta rush to help Medi, her mother summons 3 stone golems to deal with Mamako. However, she gently asks them to let her talk to Metamama, causing the golems to crumble into bits. She can't understand why her golems are listening to someone else, so Mamako teaches her that sometimes pretty please gets better results than her dictator routine. When Masato was young, she would often tell him to do certain things but was worried that she was simply forcing him to be the way she wanted him to be. While Mamako believes in individual growth, Metamama thinks a mother should have control over everything a child does. On the other hand, Wise tries to use her magic to subdue Medi, but Medi casts a spell to suck out all her mana, leaving her more useless than Sakura. While Masato defends against Medi's attacks, Porta gives Wise a ton of mana potions to restore her MP. Just then, they notice that Mamako has started glowing, and Porta explains that she's unlocked a high-ranked skill called Mother's World, which lets her convey her message with the power of all the mothers. With this new power, she slaps Metamama with a reality check, making her realize that her whole approach is a mess. The second she sees her daughter looking ready to deep fry Masato, she rushes in to stop the kid from becoming tonight's crispy special. However, Medi is so full of her that she flings her away, stating that she will never forgive her for what she's done. Despite that, Metamama stands firm and accepts her fate, admitting that she has been a horrible mother so far. For the first time ever, Masato feels that she actually cares for her daughter and stops Medi from causing more damage. As he holds her down, Wise finally replenishes her mana and casts wind magic to levitate Medi up in the air. This allows Masato to use his sword, but Medi covers herself in a stone shell to counter his attack. Luckily, Mamako's attacks break the shell down, and instead of attacking, Masato tries to talk to her this time. With encouragement from Mamako, he swings his sword and breaks the staff, causing Medi to return to her human form. Medi then slowly falls down, and her mother catches her in midair, embracing her with love and care. Later, they all gather under a tree and she shares stories about Medi's childhood, explaining how she was obsessed with being the best mother to her. However, she soon realized that she was putting Medi through a lot of stress but did not know how to fix things. That's when she found this game, but she does not understand where everything went wrong. Masato points at the broken staff, revealing that it brings out true urges, which means Metamama was under its dark influence. This enhanced her desire to be the best mother to the point that she stopped caring about how Medi felt. In the end, all she wanted was to be a good mother to Medi, but despite this revelation, she is unable to forgive herself. However, Medi realizes how hard it is to be a mother and embraces her, stating that she is so happy to have a mother who tries so hard for her. Given a second chance, Metamama promises to change her ways and be a better mother, solving the conflict between the two. Later, they all enjoy the food Mamako makes, and Masato uses this opportunity to invite Metamama to his party. He says they could use a healer of her talent, but Metamama turns them down, saying she needs to log out of the game and touch some grass. However, she has no problem with Medi joining their party and even gives her the freedom to choose. Having the choice to herself, Medi decides to go with Masato and the others and become a part of their team. Masato questions if a child can really play this game without their parent, and Shirase comes out of nowhere to inform them that she's made an exception for Medi and Wise. In the end, it's time to receive the items that were promised in the flyer. However, Shirase reveals that they will have to spin a wheel using their skill points to get that item. After a long day of spinning and spending all their skill points, Masako only gets a large number of health-boosting items, while Wise gets a large number of mana replenishing bottles. Luckily, Porta gets the stuffed animal she was looking for, and Medi decides to keep her skill points so she can boost her stats later. Since they fought so hard, Shirase gives them one extra spin, and Masato rolls an apron that only mothers can wear. Wearing the apron, Mamako starts glowing, promising to cherish the gift Masato gave her. The next day, Mamako is filling out a survey asking her about her experience in the game so far. While the rest of the squad patiently waits for her to finish, Porta spots a large horde of monsters rushing in their direction. Masato realizes this is their chance to defeat them and score skill points, since Mamako is busy filling out the survey. As soon as he leaps into attack, Mamako notices the monsters coming in and takes them all out with a single attack, leaving the man irritated. When Medi learns that all of their battles go this way, she takes a moment to herself and starts kicking a rock, because her plan to make everyone love her by saving them is ruined. Masato understands her frustration, stating he needs to find ways to get stronger. Just then, he is handed a flyer telling him about a brand new dungeon that is open for exploration. Anyone who completes this dungeon will be granted any one wish they desire, but he isn't getting his hopes high right now. Soon after, they arrive at the port city of Omim and spot a giant tower in the sea. The tower is so huge they cannot even see the top, but before they can even address its size, they are bombarded by locals who want them to do stupid side quests, like finding their lost kids. Just then, they spot a coffin and drag it to a dark alley where Medi takes over Wise's job of reviving Shirase. She explains how the mothers bombarded her with quests as well, and since she's not allowed to participate in them, she decided to PK herself to escape the situation. However, she reveals the devs did not plan this event, so they must get to the bottom of it. Later, they all gather outside the dungeon, and Shirase asks them to just help her investigate for now. However, Misato wants to clear every floor and get to the top so he can finally score some, and prove that he is no longer a mama's boy. Wise jokingly says she has the power to see the future, and she sees Mamako defeating all the monsters on her own. She also sees Mamako stealing Masato's wish by asking for some eggs. Terrified of losing his wish, Masato asks Mamako to keep her mouth shut in there, and everyone looks forward to seeing if Wise actually has a vision of it she's just trolling. Going inside, Shirase reveals this tower is built to stop solo players, which means they need a large party of test players to complete it. Soon after, they come across giant spiders and Mamako refuses to take them out. She heard somewhere that you are not supposed to attack spiders during the daytime because they apparently bring good luck. Ignoring the spiders, they come across a checkpoint room, where Masato steps on a tile that replenishes his HP. Porta, on the other hand, finds a tile that grants her the exit key, which they can use to leave the dungeon at will. Wise notices a tile with the book on it, and steps on it multiple times thinking it will boost her magic. But Shirase reveals it is a magic ceiling tile, and each step increases the duration of its effect. With Wise out of the picture, Medi sees the golden opportunity to take over her task and steal all the spotlight. And lastly, there is a tile with a tornado on it, which flings them over to the next level. At the next level, they meet an arrogant blonde who calls them fools, only to demonstrate her ultimate tomfoolery by tumbling down the stairs. Acting like it was all part of her plan, she introduces herself as Amante, a member of a rebel group called Rebel. She explains that Rebel is a group of kids who rebelled against their mothers, but as soon as she spots Mamako, she runs off without explaining anything. However, she falls down the stairs once again, so other members of her group show up to carry her back to safety. After they leave, Shirase believes they have gathered enough info and asks Porta to use her exit key. Once outside, Shirase explains that this is not an in-game event but rather a big problem. The kids they saw inside the dungeon are the ones that are missing from the city, who have most likely left their mothers to join the rebel group. The one leading these kids is none other than Amante, one of the four fiends of Rebel. The kids aren't just camping in the dungeon, but rather clearing it slowly so they can reach the top and have their wishes granted. And judging by their attitude, it is highly likely they're gonna wish for something evil. Masato is excited to defeat these evil kids, but Mamako plans on sending them back to their parents. Wise agrees with Mamako, explaining that the kids won't be able to finish the dungeon if they are sent back to their parents. However, they do not have enough members to subdue those kids, so Shirase advises them to make a guild and recruit new members. She takes them to an abandoned house which they register as their new guild house. The place gives off Florida vibes, and Masato worries no one will want to live here besides them, but Mamako promises to make this place more homelike. After breakfast, Shirase tells the girls she left a present in their inventory which they can use to improve their guild before leaving to conduct another investigation. Soon after, Wise, Medi, and Porta show up in a maid costume, and Masato reveals he has a similar costume as well. Just then, Mamako shows up in a regular costume, and Masato reveals he forbade his mother from wearing a costume for his own peace of mind. The girls are downright annoyed, all because they were itching to watch Masato's brain short-circuit at the sight of his mom as a busty maid. Despite that, they all split tasks to repair the building and decorate it so it appears more welcoming. Later, Masato, Medi, and Porta arrive at a store to buy building materials, while Mamako stays back to clean Masto's room and make his bed. Wise asks her if it is really necessary, since he won't be using this room for long, so Mamako explains how it makes her happy to give her son a welcoming feeling whenever he comes home. Just then, someone rings the doorbell and Mamako rushes outside thinking it is her son. However, she is shocked to see the person at the door. Meanwhile, as Masato and the rest buy all the materials needed for repairs, they spot Amante, the same arrogant blonde they saw in the dungeon. Medi uses this as an opportunity to scare her by saying the wound on her butt will never heal and no man would want to clap those cheeks.
Damn!
When she starts crying, Masato volunteers to do the honors, only to learn that she has sent an assassin to their base to take out Mamako. However, they all know how strong Mamako is and claim she will be fine on her own. Just then, Wise shows up at the store and asks them to hurry back because Mamako is barely holding on her own. Realizing he might lose his mother, Masato quickly rushes back to her rescue. Teleporting to the guild, Masato knows his mother is a badass but still worries for her safety. As he runs into the guild house, he finds Mamako sitting across a table with a merchant who's teaching her how to use a crystal ball. Masato realizes that Mamako is in no real danger other than falling for the merchant's tricks to buy useless items. The merchant lures her in by saying her son would be happy to buy this item. But Masato intervenes just in time and stops Mamako from paying. As soon as the merchant leaves, Porta starts panicking, revealing that the crystal ball on the table is actually a bomb. As the bomb starts beeping, the squad goes into a frenzy as they have no means to defuse it. So Mamako holds it up to her chest and starts giving it head pats. Much to their surprise, the trick actually works and the bomb stops beeping. She reveals that Masato would cry like this all the time, but when she held him like this, he would calm down. To a mother, a child is no less than a bomb, so she figured it would require the same method to calm down. She then praises Masato for coming in like a hero and saving his mother from the salesman. Later, they all enjoy a picnic near the guild and discuss the assassin who was posing as a salesman. Just then, Amanta herself shows up to ask them why the crystal bomb never exploded. They ask her if she was the one who sent that assassin disguised as a merchant, and she foolishly admits. She also tells them she found the bomb inside the tower and couldn't find a use for it, so she decided to send it as a present to her enemies. Just then, Mamako stands up to have a word with her, but Amanti immediately puts her guard up thinking she's gonna get her ass whooped. Mamako gently asks her to send all the adventurers back to their mothers, but Amanti refuses to listen to her. She immediately runs off, letting them know that her next assassination attempt is already in progress. Just then, they hear an explosion back at the guild, and return to see it in shambles. Just then, the salesman Pachi arrives with his lackeys and reveals he's planted stronger bombs throughout the entire city. He flashes the detonator, making it clear they either follow his orders or watch the whole city go up in flames. Pochi forces Mamako to dress up in maid costumes and serve him, while Masato is up there regretting the date he was born. Meanwhile, Mamako makes them fried rice with ham, and the food is so tasty it reminds them of their own mothers. After their food service, Pochi wants to finish the day with some bed service and asks Mamako for a sloppy toppy. However, Mamako totally misunderstands the situation and tucks him to bed like a mother tucks her son. This reminds Pochi of the time when her own mother would help him sleep on difficult nights, making him fall asleep. Soon after, the other two assassins also fall asleep, and Masato is relieved to have dodged a bullet. That evening, Pochi and the others apologize to Mamako for causing her so much trouble and promise to disarm all the bombs they'd placed throughout the city. At night, they all gather in the hot spring to have another strategy meeting, and Mamako expresses her concern about Amante and her anger toward mothers in general. Just then, Amante herself walks in a towel, scolding them for sending her men back to their mothers. However, she immediately hides behind a rock and asks the girls how they are comfortable with sharing a bath with Masato. Medi, the newest one to this show, finds it a little weird but says she will do anything to fit into these clowns. Amante has a habit of sharing too much, so she ends up telling them that the tower has no bats and she's been cleaning her body in the sea. Y starts mocking her by saying she smells like salt, and Medi adds to her torture by saying her skin and hair have gone rough too. In her panic, she steps on the soap and lands face first, prompting Mamako to check up on her. However, Amante tells her off, calling her dangerous and blaming her for being a thorn in their plan. With that, she runs off again, promising to use the bath once it's empty. The next day, Shirase shows up at the guild house alongside several mothers who offer them a gift for sending their kids back to them. Pochi's mother is there too and makes him apologize once again for all the trouble he's caused. She also reveals all the mothers will be joining their guild and will help them clear the dungeon that's occupied by the rebels. With that, a large party of overpowered mothers march to the tower, and Masato realizes he is the only guy in there. He wishes Pochi and his friends were here too, but they left claiming they had something important to do. Unbeknownst to them, Amante is keeping an eye on them and is certain they cannot clear the dungeon like this. Despite that, she decides to keep an eye on Mamako. As they close in on the tower, one of the mothers reveals they left the windows of their house open to let the air in. But they've now realized that a lot of houses are being robbed in the neighborhood, so they need to go back and close them. Masato asks Wise to teleport one of the moms back to their house, but all of them surround Wise and overwhelm her with other requests. Amante, on the other hand, has gathered dozens of bombs and is ready to bury the mothers alive. Just then, she steps on one of the bombs and falls down the stairs like a accidentally setting off all the bombs. Later, the squad finally enters the tower and Wise is already out of MP due to the mothers exploiting her powers. She is so tired that she can't even stand, so Masato offers her a piggyback ride until she recovers. Seeing her be nice to Wise, all the mothers praise him for being a gentleman. As they continue, they find the entrance blocked off by debris, but Porta finds them a way up through it. After they climb to the other side, Amante, who was buried under the rubble, breaks out, frustrated by the fact that her plan has failed due to her own stupidity. However, she refuses to give up and uses a wrap tile to teleport to the next level. Meanwhile, the squad has already reached floor 20 and finds it strange how they haven't encountered any resistance so far. Despite that, the mom squad is already tired and wants to take a small break. On the other hand, Amante has placed a trap on floor 21 that will strike anyone with lightning if they wield a metallic weapon in its vicinity. However, she gets distracted when a monster appears and pulls her sword out, only to get electrocuted by her own trap like a complete moron. On the other hand, Masato and the mom squad are having a full-blown picnic on the bottom floor. Since the mothers are a little too relaxed, Masato worries they will be caught off guard, but Mamako assures him that they will be ready to fight if needed. Knowing his mother is the final boss, he decides to put his faith in her and relax a little. Later, while Mamako is cleaning the dishes, Amante crashes down the stairs to floor 20 right, in front of the mom squad. She foolishly shares how she fell into her own trap multiple times and asks why they're taking so long to clear the dungeon. When Mamako says it's because they have many things to do, Amante gets frustrated and throws a full-on tantrum about how mothers make their kids suffer. Mamako says they will come up as soon as they clean the dishes, but Amante is tired of waiting and wants to settle it here and now. However, instead of a regular fight, Amante challenges Mamako to see who is the better dishwasher. Wise and Medi take the spot as casters, and both contestants are given their own kitchen sink to see who can finish faster. As the competition starts, Amante starts washing dishes, showcasing her talent for doing chores. She believes she does not need a mother to survive and asks Mamako to admit defeat. However, Mamako puts soap on her blue sword and cleans all the dishes in a matter of seconds, leaving Amante in the dust. Amante gets upset and calls Mamako out for cheating, but the judges vote in favor of Mamako and declare her the winner. Amante refuses to admit defeat and asks for more, so Mamako suggests they wash clothes next. Wise and Medi use this opportunity to mock Amante, saying her body smells like salt and her clothes are worn out. As the competition starts, Amante starts cleaning the shirt aggressively, explaining how she learned all of this stuff while living alone in the tower. Once she's finished cleaning, Mamako tells her that she will damage her clothes if she scrubs too hard and demonstrates a delicate method of washing using her magic powers. Once again, the judges all vote in Mamako's favor and declare her the winner. Amante still refuses to admit defeat and runs off to plan something else to win. Later, the squad continues forward until they arrive at floor 81, where they find some tiles that apparently relieve fatigue and stress. Wise, Porta, and Masato step on it to try it out, but Shirase reveals that these tiles actually steal all of a player's equipment, so now Masato is stuck with his sword and underwear. However, his biggest problem is the fact that his mother stepped on one of these tiles as well. Later, they hear some monsters behind a door, and Shirase asks them to proceed with caution because they are very close to the top. As Masato and the others prepare to battle, the door starts opening and they realize they have zero defense without any clothes. However, all the tension is relieved when Amante comes out of the door in her undergarments. Turns out she had no idea her clothes were gone and has somehow found another way to embarrass herself. This time, she decides to finish things off and brings out a squad of monsters she's gathered in the dungeon. They collectively decide that Mamako alone will be enough to defeat them. But one of the mothers is quick to point out the similarities between these so-called monsters and their children. Amante reveals that Pochi and his men came to the tower earlier and managed to convince the others to rebel against her, so she turned them all into monsters that follow her orders. The mothers are horrified to hear this and beg Mamako to not hurt their children, prompting Mamako to lay down her arms. Amante, on the other hand, does not care and asks the children to attack their mothers. Surprisingly, the monsters lay down their arms as well and start crying because they just want to go back to their mothers. However, Amante pulls out a crystal and casts a magic circle that drives them all to an uncontrollable rage. This spell pulls out the darkest desires of the children, so they pick up the weapons again and start approaching the mom squad. Masato is out of options, but Medi and Wise step up to create a barrier and cast a spell that will keep the monsters distracted without hurting them. With that, Mamako approaches the mothers and tells them that their children can harm them in their current state. The moms put all the blame on Amante, but Mamako makes them see that all these children are in some way hurt or unhappy with how their parents have treated them. To make them go back to normal, mothers must resolve the issues and make them see that they are actually loved and cared for. She makes them understand that despite having best interests, mothers can also make mistakes and need to make it up to their kids in order to have a healthy relationship with them. With her power, Mamako creates armor around every mother, and Shirise explains that it is an indestructible set that can withstand every attack from a child. With this armor, Pochi's mother steps in first and endures all of his attacks, making him see that she really cares about him. After she embraces him, Pochi goes back to his human form, and after that, all the mothers are able to turn their children back to normal. Seeing all the mothers hug their kids, Mamako decides to hug Masato to show him that she cares about him too. Later, Pochi reveals he came here to overthrow Amante to atone for his wrongdoings, but things didn't go exactly as he planned. He then reveals that Amante's ultimate plan is to complete the dungeon and make a wish for herself. When asked what she wishes for, Pochi reveals she wants to erase all the mothers from this world. Sensing the urgency, Masato and the rest rush to the top to stop her from saying her wish. However, once they get closer to the top, they cross a glowing bridge that teleports them away. Masato finds himself all alone in a hallway filled with traps and quickly realizes they have been separated. However, he believes he and the rest can easily navigate through them and meet up again. As he continues down the dark alley, he hears some footsteps approaching him and gets his guard up. However, he is relieved to find that it is his mother, Mamako. After reuniting with her, he decides to continue forward, but Mamako strangely asks him to follow her into a narrow alley. When he notices that the alley is closed from the other side, he throws a rock in which causes it to activate a trap. He quickly realizes that the Mamako he sees in front of him is a mere imitation to trap him inside his dungeon. Ignoring all the fake Mamakos set to trap him, Masato continues forward until he comes across a staircase. Before he can exit the floor, all the Mamakos he's left behind start approaching him, becoming increasingly creepier by the second. When Masato trips and falls on the stairs, another Mamako shows up from above, and he is able to tell her apart from all the fake ones. The real Mamako gets furious at the fake ones, scolding them for using her appearance to scare Masato. That's when he realizes his mother cares deeply about what he thinks of her. Soon after, they reunite with the rest of the team, and Wise reveals she saw many versions of her mother as well. However, she could tell it was a trap and blew them all up. Meidi, on the other hand, whacked her fake mommies with the staff, but Porta strangely does not give any details about her encounter. Wise asks Masato about his encounter, but before he can answer, they hear an explosion and rush to check it out. Once there, they see Amante trying to force open the door to the final floor, but it won't budge. Masato is surprised to see that Amante, with all her stupidity, took out the final boss of this dungeon all by herself. When Amante notices them, she pulls her sword out and decides to settle things here and now. Things can get ugly here, so Mamako asks Porta to hide since she is a non-combatant. Amante then turns her attention to Wise and Meidi, vowing to pay them back for all the times they made her look like a fool, even though she did not need their help to demonstrate her negative IQ. Masto, being the leader of their team, asks her to fight him first. With that, Amante throws her sword in the air and rushes Masato down, and even with Meidi's barrier and his shield, Masato gets flung around like a toy. Amante then leaps up to attack Mamako, so Wise uses some wind spell to stop her. However, she ends up pushing her own allies into the crossfire, causing even more confusion. Meidi believes Wise is not skilled enough and tries to demonstrate how to use magic properly. As she casts an instant death spell on Amante, the Grim Reaper strangely multiples and attacks her back, causing both Meidi and Wise to turn into coffins. Since they have no other mages to revive them, they ask Porta to find something to help. Masato then asks Amante to explain her skill, and she reveals she has the power to reflect attacks that step from her nature of going against everything she is told to do. Despite her explanation, Mamako wants to attack first, but Masato stops her, making her see that her attacks are so OP, they would blow everything up if reflected. Seeing how Mamako is always nosy, Amante offers to wipe her from existence to make things easier for Masato, stating that he will be truly free once all the mothers are gone. Just then, Wise and Meidi get revived and ask Masato to not listen to the crap Amante is feeding him. Wise tries to use a magic spell on her, but just like before, she reflects it back to her. Meidi then tries to attack her with the staff, but all physical attacks are also reflected back to the attacker. Amante then starts yapping about how Masato was supposed to have fun adventures with his friends, enjoy life and fall in love, but none of those things happened because she's been blocking him since day one. As she prepares to finish Mamako off, Masato steps in, stating he does not care about such things. He recalls how frustrated he was when he first came here, thinking that her mother would ruin his more desired fantasy. Not only was she way stronger than him, but she wore a school uniform and came to attend classes with him and stole all the spotlight. He admits that everything has been a total circus show gone wrong ever since he's come here. Despite all that, Masato believes that is the fun of adventuring, where you run into all sorts of crazy situations and learn to deal with them on the fly. He believes that this adventure was a big learning experience for them only because they had Mamako on their team, so he wants to protect her and continue adventuring with her. With that, the rest of the squad joins him, ready to take down Amante once and for all. However, Mamako asks permission to say one last thing to her before they get to fighting. She asks Amante why she feels so much hate from others, but Amante refuses to explain and starts throwing a tantrum. This time, the usually cheerful Mamako gets upset and decides to scold her to bring her back to her senses. Masato tries to stop her, but the girl's pushing away so Mamako can do her mommy magic in peace. Just then, a huge burst of energy comes out of her finger, and Port explains that it is the ultimate skill of maternal love that comes out when the mother is upset with their child. Despite her power of reflection, Amante fails to parry this attack, which goes right through her and opens the door behind her. Mamako explains that it was a scolding rather than an attack, but Amante does not care and runs into the door to make her wish. The rest of the squad follows her in, but once they reach the wishing panel, Masato forgets what he wants to wish for. However, since he needs to make a wish before Amante, Masato gets confused and wishes for an endless supply of fresh eggs, just as Wise predicted before they entered the dungeon. Just then, a tray of eggs appears in Mamako's hands, and the wishing panel is removed from the floor. Amante gets frustrated and runs off, and Masato is left crying over the fact that he does not wish to become the strongest. Meanwhile, Amante is in a carriage over Mamako, ruining all her plans, but she has still not given up on her ambitions. The next day, Shirase joins them for breakfast and praises them for handling the situation without any major damage. She then pulls out a crystal that was used by both Wise and Medi's mother. Shirase reveals Amante was using the same crystal, so now they are going to do a thorough investigation on it. She also reveals that Amante is one of the 4 fiends of Rebel, which means 3 other children possess great power too. Now Shirase gives them a new quest to defeat those other 3 as well, and Masato laughs out, claiming he saw it coming from a mile. As they prepare for their new adventure, Mamako asks Masato if he's having fun, and the man finally admits that it is not as bad as he initially thought. That's it for this video. Leave a like and comment which anime you want us to cover next. If you want more recaps like this, watch this video here.